right, so we are on for Outlet Critical episode number 4, I believe we're on now. Moving right along, and it's about the Australian Grand Prix. I mean, what can you say? I mean, the thing is, I'll start with the obvious quick news. The first news, Max didn't win. Everybody was going crazy about that. That was the fun part about it, but missed that turn by a while. So the race starts. Max has a problem. The first question I would have is about, when did the problem actually occur? Because have Max tell it, it was like he was driving with a handbrake on the whole time, and so, if that's true, then obviously we have a completely different story on our hands, but it looked like Carlos was keeping up. It looked like Carlos was determined. Obviously, he's focused. On one of the previous episodes, we talked about how focused he was going to be this year, given the fact that he was out of a seat, and so the cool thing about, the story, of course, is that, it looked like he was on his tail, on his gearbox, literally the whole time. So with Max having to, deal with that pressure for the first time, driving traffic for the first time in God knows how long, what does that look like in Japan? Does Ferrari come back and do it again? Is this just, hey, this is just a matter of the track was terrible? But, Sergio was kind of stuck in the pack too. So was it just setup? Obviously we're hoping that, it's more than just a setup issue and we can have an actual race season this year where we have, competitive racing. But that's kind of the next thing I wanted to dive into before I really got into, the entire race and what happened and what went on there. I don't understand what it is about Formula One fans, Formula One commentators, Formula One pundits, whatever you want to call them. I don't understand what is it about these guys that are just so unsatisfied with everything they see. Like, no matter what happens, there's always a negative spin to it. The number one thing I heard this weekend about this weekend's race was, Max didn't win, but it still wasn't a good race. Like, I mean, I get it. It's not the most thrilling race on the planet, but we're all here for racing. That's what we're here for, guys. We're here for racing. And let's just leave Max out for a second. He didn't win the race, of course, but with Max not winning the race, and we have a whole new outlook on things. It's so wide open, that it's exciting. It should be fun for everybody. We're getting to see something we've all been dying for, for a few years now. Since Max has been dominating in that Red Bull, we finally have it. We have a race where we know from the very beginning Max will not be winning. We have the other Red Bull that's kind of stuck in the middle of the pack a little bit due to the penalties. We have exactly what we're asking for. The race takes off. There's some good things happening. Of course, I'm talking about after Max's exit from the race. But when you watch the race, I don't understand what it was about that race that wasn't satisfying. We don't have a spec series with Formula One where everybody is running the exact same car. You're gonna have hierarchies. You're gonna have gaps. But the incredible thing about it, and I kind of feel the same way about like soccer, for instance, or in soccer, the goals are so exciting because they're not every single time you go down the field there's a goal. You have to wait for it. There's a build-up. There's anticipation. With racing, I feel the same way. They're not always going to be on top of each other on the track. They're not always going to be passing and passing and passing. Not every track is set up for that. There's so much that goes into it. And, again, blame the engineers. It's their fault that nobody's close to Max. It's their fault that nobody has got anywhere near Red Bull in, 2.5 years now. So, I mean, what exactly are you expecting out of Formula One if not what you saw? I mean, obviously, not the greatest race in history, but to call it a bad race just because, I don't know why. I thought we had a lot of good things going on in that race that we could talk about that really just made it fun. I guess I'm just asking, when do we want to get back to having fun with Formula One? What are our expectations at this point? Because if you're looking for, more overtaking, closer racing, cars that are next to each other the entire round, or the entire Grand Prix, you probably should go check out IndyCar. Like, if that's exactly what you're on, if that's what you want, if that's the only thing that's going to make you happy. But literally every single podcast I listen to, all of you guys just miserable about the state of racing right now. And it's like, why can't we just have fun? Even with Max in the race, there's so much going on behind Max, on top of the fact that the cameras go out of their way, literally out of their way, to show everything but Max. You get to see Max in the beginning, he scampers off, and then you get to see the rest of the race. So, like, there's always something exciting going on. There's so many storylines. I mean, look at Haas this year. I mean, there's so many different things that are really good and really fun going on. I just don't understand why everybody's so miserable about it. Like, this is racing. What are you expecting? Next year may be a different story, or maybe another year of domination from Red Bull. Who knows? I mean, the cool thing about next year is we have all the driver seat switches and all that stuff. But, I mean, just on the track itself, I think that we have got to start realizing that, not every race is made for 100 overtakes. Go to IndyCar for that. So, on to the race. You got Carlos Sainz, who really dominated that race from start to finish. I mean, he was kind of gone, the entire race, calling off orders on the radio, making sure that, everything that he wanted to happen was happening as far as the racing goes. The other cool part about that was I thought that whenever, I think we all collectively held our breath whenever he went to the pits for that final pit stop, because he had such a brilliant race so far. And Ferrari, you know how Ferrari gets down, the little black cat. That was the moment where, at least I know myself personally, I kind of held my breath, like, will Ferrari get this right? But they did. That was kudos to them. They actually got it done. They did exactly what they needed to do in that scenario. So, Ferrari looking good there. Charles Leclerc coming in right behind him. And a pretty cool moment at the end where Carlos is asking for, Charles to come up next to him so that they can celebrate together. Of course, he couldn't. It got close enough. So anyway, that was a pretty cool moment, I thought. And Carlos really showing himself well, auditioning for a potential seat next year. And so, with Charles, I wonder, obviously a lot of people are asking, did they make the right decision, selecting Lewis? I mean, you can't really say no to Lewis Hamilton going into one of your seats. So, I mean, obviously not. But, a lot of people are asking, did they make the right decision when it comes to, Charles versus Carlos? I guess time will tell. The rest of the season, we're going to get to see these two kind of go head to head. I doubt that Carlos is going to be, team friendly when it comes to different, orders. He's going to be looking to get done what he needs to get done so that he gets that seat next year. But interestingly enough, the way he's racing right now, you could see him getting a call from the Red Bull team. With Sergio, the thing is, I think he's going to come in this year determined to get it done. It's just a matter of, is he good enough? Can he start producing better than? But I tell you what, he's got to be in second place. If he doesn't win the race, he's got to come in second. He cannot come in third, fourth, fifth place. He has got to come in. I mean, that's what he's there for, the rear gunner. He's there to make sure that if something happens with Max's car, as it did, he is, ready to pick up the scraps, so to speak, and get himself a second place. Or first place, rather. He ate up his tires, the first end of the race. A lot of different things. But, watching how how good Carlos is doing right now, as far as race pace, race craft, he's always a good, smart racer. He's purporting himself well, to the public to let them know, hey, listen, I think that I have a good call here for the next seat. All right, so on to the rest of the pack. So, we've got Charles Leclerc coming in second and Lando in third. So first, Lando. I mean, when are we gonna get a win? He's got to be feeling it at this point. And with Lando, you know, I know that he feels as though he's good enough. He's just looking for a car that will, you know, perform the way he's looking to perform. With Charles, you know, he's the golden boy, you know, or at least it would seem, you know, the chosen one, you know, one to be the next one up. And when are we going to start seeing it? I kind of feel like he needs more race wins at this point. You know, Max is Max. And so, but here's the thing. He's on pole just about as much as Max is nowadays, or at least expected to be. And, you know, with all of that, he never seems to come out on top. And I swear it's like, you remember last year where cars were literally just diving out of Max's way on the way in, you know, and it just wasn't even, nobody even tried to compete with him. It was ridiculous. It's kind of the same thing now with Charles, I kind of feel like, and that was what was refreshing this weekend, the race weekend, was watching, you know, somebody with nothing to lose like Carlos, who was like, you know what, I'm going after this thing, and stayed with Max the entire time. Obviously, you know, with the Max issue, we'll never know, but, you know, I don't really see Charles attacking the line like Max does. I don't see him attacking kind of like, you know, Carlos, I kind of felt like slipped behind him strategically. You know, I think that was the big thing with Carlos. I think he slipped behind Max strategically on that, because he knew he'd get him coming up close. He just had to stay with him. And so with Charles, I just don't really see that. You know, I don't want to say killer instinct. These guys are all killers, you know. But he just doesn't seem to want it with Max, if we just want to say it frankly. You know, he doesn't seem like he's the one that's going to, you know, take it to Max. It just doesn't seem like he has a mentality. I don't know what it is, but, you know, whether he has the car or not, that's a whole different story. You know, but, you know, I want to see aggressiveness in drivers. Not like Max. I think Max is a bit too aggressive at times, but, you know, when it comes down to, you know, attacking off that line, I kind of mentioned this in one of the previous episodes. I don't think that Alonso is letting Max, you know, cut him off at the pass like a lot of these drivers do. You know, I think that Alonso gives him a really hard run, you know, and makes him think. You know, and that's what I'm really interested to see with Max. I know we're talking about the Australian GrandPrix and Max wasn't in it, but, you know, I'm really interested to see what happens when Max is back in the pack. You know, when he's racing every week for wins and not out in front of everybody by a mile and a half by turn 2. You know, I want to see, you know, I want to get back to the racing where we see that with Max and the rest of the pack. But with Charles, I want to know if he's got that killer instinct to go after that win whenever it's right there in front of him. You know, he couldn't keep up with Carlos over the weekend. I know there were team orders, but, you know, Carlos was just on a different level this weekend. And, you know, I think I haven't even mentioned it yet. The guy was not at 100%, obviously, you know, right after having the surgery. So, you know, what are we going to get from Carlos the rest of the year is going to be a pretty exciting thing, I think. I'm really excited to see how that goes. And so, you know, Lando has got, you know, a pretty good racer with him right now, in a teammate in Oscar Piastri. And so, you know, he's gonna have that fight on his hand on a weekly basis, I think. The team did the right thing this weekend. Lando was quite a bit faster, I think. Just the way things handed out, they had to get Oscar into the pits first, which kind of gave him position, but then they gave it back. They did the right thing. I think McLaren has got, you know, their head on straight on how to deal with these teammates and how to make sure that everybody is, you know, cohesive. You know, but, you know, it's also kind of time to see Lando do his thing. I want to see Lando, you know, get that victory. I kind of think he's going to get it this year. You know, where is kind of going to be the question. He's going to need to put it on pole at some point. And, you know, does he have the car to do it? I don't know, but I'll tell you what. Sometimes you've got to do more than the car is capable of. You've got to push the car to a different limit, to a different level. sometimes you got to do that, I think, to get in front. So with Lando, I guess we'll see. We'll find out. But hopefully this year he gets to run. I'm looking for variety. The being predictable notwithstanding, right now it is fun watching the mid pack and learning, what's going on and see what's up and coming. But at the same time, you do want to see different podium setters. You do want to see, it kind of mix in and out. And so it's going to be an interesting battle at least. I'm not convinced that, this Ferrari win was going to be something that is consistent. I think maybe it is kind of a setup thing. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I'm still very excited about the year nonetheless. I think there's a lot of things that are going to be happening throughout the year. When is Lewis going to get his what together? And, start getting, we think he's experimenting again, but, in his position, I don't know that I'd want to do that again. It's George's team, let him do it. They're not going to have Lewis in those meetings, things like that. He's going to have to, at some point, start picking it up again. Especially with, it seems like he might have gotten it right with Red Bull or with Ferrari picking that team. There's a lot of interesting things happening, but, I think it's time Lewis, picked it up. Start showing us that you are capable of, racing mid-pack, front of the pack, mid to front of the pack rather, without the best car. That's kind of what you're going to have to get back to, at this point in the middle of this year. That's kind of feeling good. So, next, I believe it was, we had the two McLarens and, we had two McLarens and then, it was the Perez, Sergio. Oh, gosh. So, Sergio, man, you don't have no business being, fifth in this race. None whatsoever. The penalty happened, impeding, okay, but you got that rocket, You got to be in the front of the pack. You got to be leading this race within 3 laps, just like your teammate did, and show us what that car can really do. But he never really got there. I don't know what to do. At the end of the day, the guy's still in second place in the constructors. Let's not get hasty. But at the same time, let's get hasty. He's under pressure this year. If he wants to keep that seat, if he wants to keep racing with Red Bull, he is going to have to pick that up. So, I think that's a huge factor. I don't think that he belongs back there. Sergio has got to pick it up. We'll see how it goes with the rest of the year. But with Sergio, I just don't think that car belongs anywhere near the middle of the pack. It's too fast. And that also is what makes the Sergio Perez, the Carlos Sainz thing super interesting. Because with as well as he's driving right now, you got to think the other teams are starting to take a peek. Red Bull is looking at this. They're seeing, what their driver's doing in their car versus what Carlos is doing in the Ferrari. So, is what it is. Got to win to stay aboard, man. And I think that car is good enough to win races, just about every single race if Max is in it, of course. So, Sergio's got to pick it up. I don't like that. I don't like the finishing place for him. All right. So next is Lance. Man, Lance kind of a gifted one because of Alonso's thing. In fact, let's talk about the Alonso thing first. I've heard both sides now. Whether it was what he was saying over the radio with the issues he was having, or if Fernando was being Fernando. I kind of think Fernando was being Fernando. It was a little bit of a interesting move he pulled off there towards the end in the last lap. And, a couple things about this. I'm sure Alonso didn't go into that last turn thinking, or into that turn thinking to himself, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this guy to go into the wall. He just wanted George to lift a little bit earlier than he wanted to, and therefore make it really, really hard for him to pass throughout the rest of the lap. And so, the result notwithstanding, I don't think that's what he was after. I think he just kind of wanted to mess with George a little bit, give him a little bit of a nudge to the wrong direction, and I think it's almost tantamount to like brake checking almost. Like he was dangerously close to brake checking. 100 meters short of where he did anywhere else in the race. It's kind of hard to defend, and so kind of an interesting tactic there. And so the penalty is what it is, well deserved. But I kind of think Alonso was kind of playing the game there, and sometimes you get by, sometimes you don't. Thank goodness George is okay, but what took them so long to call a flag of any kind? Like, that I don't understand. You've got George literally in the middle of the track with his car facing the wrong direction. He can't see what's coming forward. He's panicking, which he should have been. What in the world took so long in order for them to, rectify that and get some kind of flag? I kind of think a red flag was warranted. I think they didn't because it was close to the end of the race. But again, you don't make that determination based off, what part of the race you're in. I think that has to get red flagged. You just don't want to have any kind of scenario happen where you've got a driver getting, speared essentially, in the middle of the track, just so you can kind of get that last lap completed. That was a pretty nasty setup the way he landed. Thank goodness he's okay. But yeah, I kind of think they've got to get on the ball a little bit faster than that. You never know what could happen on that track. And if the car is on its side like that, who knows what's going on with that car? We got to get him out of there a little bit faster than that, I think. He was sitting on his side for way too long. But, lots of excitement that happened in this race, I think. Lots of fun things, lots of different, outcomes that are coming out. I kind of want to talk about Formula 2, though. I watched Formula 2, the entire weekend. I've kind of been looking at the Kimi situation, watching him, see how he's racing, see how some of these other guys are racing. I'm watching some F1 Academy as well, just really enjoying the race weekend for what it is. And, something struck me during those Formula 2 races, watching those kids kind of go for it. I want to see racing with that kind of fearlessness. I mean, those kids are going after it. It being a spec series obviously lends itself for more exciting racing as far as overtaking goes. But, it's nice to see, what's really going to happen with all these upcoming drivers, because you're watching them race. Is Kimi ready for a Formula One car? So far, I would say no. Maybe he needs a little more. He needs a little more experience. But the thing is, we're starting to have a logjam at the top here. There's not going to be that many seats available. You've got all these changes happening next year, but a lot of those drivers are going to get drives again. So that means this up-and-coming driving market, especially about to go into the new, regulations, there's not going to be that many available spaces for people to get into seats. And so, what do these Formula 2 drivers do after they have, gotten success? Some of them have got championships under the belt now. Some of them are runners-up, and then you've got drivers on the grid right now that just don't seem to be, making it happen, so to speak. It goes right back to the Andretti thing. They're going to need more people for the, they're going to need more seats. So the Andretti thing was a perfect fit, There's just so much. So the Formula 2 thing, exciting. Definitely check that out if you don't get an opportunity to, get into it a little bit. It's fun watching those teams do their thing. But we are looking forward to Japan. We will see you there. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions, or, if you agree, if you disagree, let me hear it in the comment section. What do you guys think? Was Max's car issue saving Red Bull from the inevitable Carlos Sainz stampede, or was it just we're gonna see in Japan, what Red Bull's got and where they're at. They sent that car down there. We'll see what happens. But looking forward to the racing. And again, if you are a Formula One podcaster, if you are a Formula One fan, there's somebody who's checking it out for the first time, just enjoy the racing. Stop complaining so much about, what you're expecting versus what you're getting here. Look at it for what it is. This is racing. You understand that it's not a spec series, so it's not going to be wall to wall the entire race. But that's what makes it exciting. When you do see an overtake, those are exciting moments in the race. That's what separates these guys. So, enjoy it. Enjoy the time that they have on the track. A lot of these drivers you're not going to see after this year, so, enjoy the time you have with them. So, this has been episode 4, and look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Like, subscribe, follow, you know the drill.